At exactly 47 seconds into the live hearing, Jasmine Crockett tore open a blood-red envelope like it was a grenade and dropped a DNA bomb that had Donald Trump's name written all over it. Thetis didn't just prove he had a secret daughter, it proved he spent $3.1 million to keep her invisible. Cameras blinked, his smile cracked, and the room turned colder than a courtroom morgue. What did Jasmine just expose that made the most powerful man in America forget to speak on live TV? The hearing room looked more like a movie set than a seat of justice. Everything too polished, too quiet, too fake. Flags stood frozen like props. Microphones blinked red like sniper dots waiting to catch a mistake. And right in the middle of it all, Jasmine Crockett gripped Akram's envelope like it was ticking. Something was coming, and the room had no idea what was about to explode. Cameras were already rolling from every angle. CNN, Fox, MSNBC, on paper. This was just another oversight committee hearing on federal ethics and financial transparency. But behind the cameras, people knew this wasn't about spreadsheets. This was about control, about what secrets could be bought, buried, or erased with enough money and the right last name. And at the center of it all sat Donald Trump, Butanadinto, his navy suit-like armor, lips curled into that signature smirk. Hellicked calm, untouchable, like he'd done this 100 times. And maybe he had. He entered like he was walking onto a game show stage, raised a hand to the crowd, winked at the cameras, flanked Bitwo, sharp-suited attorneys, both stone-faced and wired with earpieces. A few Republican members even chuckled. Ash passed. Jasmine didn't. She didn't move. She just watched him sit, then lowered her gaze to the envelope in her hands. It wasn't just a prop. It was proof. Proof of something too big, too ugly, too human to fit inside a press release, and in exactly 47 seconds, it was going to punch through the marble walls of that room like a bullet. A gavel cracked once. The Oversight Committee will come to order. More theater paper shuffled. Coughs cleared. One congressman leaned back like he was settling in for a nap. Another quiet-liked his phone under the table. Everyone thought this would be another dance. The same steps, same blame, some anything. They didn't notice Jasmine's stillness. Her knuckles were white. The envelope glinted under the lights, thick and deep red, like a wound sealed shut. Trump leaned toward his mic. Let's get this over with, shall we? His voice echoed too loud, like he already knew he'd win. This round, his attorney sex-changed a confident nod, but they didn't see what Jasmine had. They didn't see the page inside that envelope, Theon with his name next to a 99.98% DNA match. They didn't see the wire transfer dated 2 decades ago, or the signature, from a lawyer, long since disbarred, but she did. She'd read every page twice. Jasmine adjusted her mic but didn't speak. She just stared across their room at Trump like she was looking through him, not at the man, but at the mask. The silence stretched. Even the theme of the light seemed to fade. Trump narrowed his eyes. Something wrong, Congresswoman Jasmine finally blinked. No, Mr. Trump, she said softly, thumb sliding under the envelope flap. But something's about to be. 47 seconds. One envelope, and a secret, big enough to bring down an empire. What did Jasmine Crockett just uncover that made a man like Donald Trump spend $3.1 million to pretend it never existed? The envelope didn't make a sound when Jasmine Crockett opened it. Just a soft snap like a switch being flipped somewhere beneath the skin of Washington. Her fingers moved slow, deliberate like Somion loading a weapon in front of the enemy. The red paper slid across the marble desk, catching the light like fresh blood. Cameras zoomed in. The air dropped a degree. She didn't raise her. She didn't need to. Mr. Trump, she said, eyes never leaving the page. Can you tell this committee what Samaritan Ventures LLC is? Trump raised an eyebrow. Never heard of it. One office lawyers stiffened. The other glanced down at a folder flipping faster than before. Jasmine continued, calm and clearback, as this shell company registered in Delaware. Under a P.O. box and a defunct nonprofit address, wired. Exactly $3.1 million to a woman named Maria Santos in April of 2001. A low murmur rippled through the chamber. She worked at Mar-a-Lago, Jasmine added, holding up a printed badge log. Housekeeping staff were exterminated 3 weeks after that transfer. 2 months later, dead in what Palm Beach PD called an accidental fall. No follow-up, no autopsy. Closed file. Trump leaned back in his chair, smiling like a man watching a child perform a magic trick. She was nobody. Jasmine's jaw didn't move, only her eyes, sharp, focused. She was someone's daughter, someone's mother, and according to this report, she held up a lab file sealed with chain of custody documentation. Someone's bloodline. One of Trump's lawyers whispered something into his ear. His smile twitched, but held. The lab test, Jasmine continued, run by a state-accredited DNA facility in El Paso, cross-verified with archived samples from a hospital in West Palm, shows a 99.98% paternity match between Donald J. Trump and a woman named Emily Santos. The room didn't just stir, it snapped awake. Chairs creaked. Phones came out. Reporters in the gallery started texting without looking down, and Donald Trump, who had sat like a stone for most of his public life, shifted in his seat. "You said she was nobody," Jasmine repeated, voice steady. "But your blood says otherwise." Trump snorted louder than he meant to. "Oh, please. This is a publicity stunt. You think some sad little maid leaves behind a kid, and now I'm what?" Suddenly, the villain Jasmine added blink. "You made yourself the villain the day you tried to erase her." The chairman tried to interject. "Let's remain respectful." But no one was listening anymore. All eyes were on Trump. All ears were on Crockett. Her fingers tapped once on the page, then slid it across to the record keeper for entry into the official record. The document glided across the desk like a blade. Trump looked down at his tie, adjusted it once, twice. He didn't speak. Jasmine leaned slightly forward. "You paid to bury a secret. You paid to raise a girl. But secrets don't stay buried. And girls grow up." Behind her, a screen flickered to life with the name Emily Santos. A blurred photo, a date of birth, a simple caption underneath, erased but alive. And suddenly, this wasn't about spreadsheets or shell companies anymore. This was about blood. This was about a man who built towers to touch the sky, and couldn't face the one thing buried beneath his own name. With happens, when the daughter you tried to erase shows up with the truth written in your DNA. For a full second after Jasmine said the words, 99.98% DNA matched the room, didn't breathe, it didn't blink, it just froze. The kind of stillness that only happens when something massive shifts underneath people's feet, but they don't yet know how to stay standing. A few gasps cut through the silence like glass under pressure. Reporters' thumbs flew across screens, cameras zoomed in, and somewhere in the back, a staffer dropped a pen that clattered like thunder. Trump's lead attorney shot to his feet. "Madam Chair, I move to strike the record. This is an outrageous violation of privacy and relevance." His voice cracked from volume and panic, not conviction. The second attorney followed, shouting about unverified lab sources and character assassination. Trump himself didn't speak. His eyes stayed locked on the screen behind Jasmine, where the blurred photo of Emily Santos remained frozen. Haunting young Rio. Jasmine didn't flinch. She didn't raise her voice. She simply turned to the legal team and said, "Strike the paper if you want, but you can't strike blood." Her words landed harder than any gavel. She walked to the evidence stand and held up the lab file again. This time the camera panted close enough for viewers across the country to see the bolded header. Paternity, likelihood, 989% probable, Father Donald John Trump, certified by Dr. Alicia Rowe. Jasmine added, glancing briefly toward the gallery, where the gray-haired geneticist sat in silence, erified sealed Lego yacht, missable, and above all, undeniable. Trump's face didn't move, but the color had drained just slightly from around his mouth. He leaned back, arms folded, fingers drumming slowly. A rhythm, a habit, a tell. Across the aisle, one GOP congressman cleared his throat awkwardly suddenly, very interested in his notes. Another whispered to a staffer. The illusion had cracked, not shattered, not yet, but the first fault line had been drawn, and Jasmine saw it. "This isn't about scandals," she said, turning back to the room. "It's about silence, about how power works when no one is watching, how it buys names, buries truth, and calls that privacy." Chairman's gavel struck once. "Let's maintain order." But order had already been rewritten. Jasmine took a breath, then tapped the DNA document with her finger. Emily Santos, born August 12, 2001, raised in El Paso, works night shifts as a nurse. She doesn't have a trust fund, doesn't have a security detail, but she does have a birth certificate with no father listed and a matching genome to the man sitting in that chair. Trump's eyes twitched just once, just enough. She wasn't trying to be found, Jasmine added, but secrets like this don't stay buried forever, especially when they leave a blood trail. For a second time, the room held its breath, not out of shock, this time out of realization. Theifer's strike hadn't just landed, it had cut, through the pageantry, through Thespin, through the myth, and yet something still felt missing. If this was the truth, if Trump had buried an entire human life just to protect his image, what else had he buried deeper, darker, and still waiting to surface? Emily Santos was born on a Monday morning in a border town hospital where no one asked too many questions. Her mother, Maria, wrote only one name on the form, hers. The space marked father stayed blank, not crossed out, not unknown, just left open like a silence one dared fill. By the time Emily turned 5, that silence had become a shadow that followed her everywhere. Her mother died in what the police called an accidental fall. No one in the neighborhood believed it. Maria had no history of falling. She did, however, have a history of being afraid. Afraid of phones ringing too late. Afraid of letters without return addresses. Afraid of men in suits who watched from parkade cars and never came inside. Emily was raised by her Aunt Rosa, a woman with hands cracked from cleaning houses and a tongue that rarely loosened around the past. But late at night, when the power flickered and the wind blew hard and auto make the walls creak, Rosa would Whisper stories about a rich white man with golden hair and a private jet who showed up, disappeared, and left nothing behind except money and silence. He gave your mom an envelope, she once said, and a warning. Don't say my name. Emily never asked again. But the question never left her. She grew up in El Paso, South Side, where buses ran late and textbooks were always 2 editions behind. At 16, she worked the night shift at a grocery store. At 18, she slept in her car for 3 months while juggling community college and EMT training. The whispers around her name grew louder when she applied for nursing school. No father listed, no paper trail beyond her mother's death. A professor